Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm going to be telling you about the books that are on my physical TBR. I almost always read library books or ebooks, so I don't have that many books on my physical TBR, but I wanted to share with you what I do have. I am excluding, however, a number of categories from this list. In particular, I have quite a few non-English children's picture books that I'm not including, as well as some comics that my husband Soonish owns that maybe at some point I will read, but I'm not including them on this list. And I have two big fantasy series that I'm not including: The Wheel of Time and the Discworld series, because those are books that my husband Soonish and I are reading together over the period of probably decades. So they're not going on this list, but everything else on here are physical books that I have on my shelf waiting for me to read. Many of these were gifts, but some of them I bought myself. So first I will start with the books that were gifts to me from Soonish, beginning with Piano Oriental by Zeina Abirached. This is a book that I started to read in French, but this is actually a German copy because Soonish mistakenly got me the German copy, but I figure, hey, it's fine, my German's better than my French anyway, so I'll read this one. It is the story, kind of like a graphic memoir and history of this lady and her, I think maybe grandfather or father who came from another country to France, and it is just so beautifully illustrated. Just really, really cool illustrations. So I very much do want to read this one. Next, Soonish got me the Contract with God Trilogy by Will Eisner. If you've ever heard of the Eisner Award, it is because of this author and this series. So this is one of those things that was influential in kind of graphic works for showing that they could be really serious topics, really serious works, not just kind of funny comics. Next is an enormous book, which is The Books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, illustrated by Charles Vess. This is huge. It is a bind-up of all of these books of this very, very classic fantasy series. Next is What If by Randall Munroe, the creator of the webcomic XKCD. And this is serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. Next is The World of Mucha by Hiroshi Unno. This is a book about the Czech artist Mucha, who was really influential in the Art Nouveau movement and did some just gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. So this is kind of like biography and history, and it's going to be really gorgeous to read through. Next is Soonish by Kelly and Zach Weinersmith. Zach Weinersmith is the author of the webcomic Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, and this book is looking at all sorts of technologies that could be coming. Now moving on to some books that were gifts from other people, beginning with Una arruga en el tiempo by Madeleine, illustrated by Hope Larson, translated by Aina Baraldes. So this is the Spanish language translation of the graphic adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time. My cousin got me this because she knew I wanted to read more graphic works in Spanish. Next is Apocalypse Sinks Ships by Adam Wing and Diana Pearson. This is a collection of short stories by a friend of mine, Adam Wing. Now moving on to some books that Soonish has read, but I have not yet read, beginning with The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. This is a book that Soonish really, really loved and highly recommended to me, and it is a fantasy of manners about a half-goblin guy who becomes the emperor. Next is Warren the 13th by Taina Del Rio, illustrated by Will Style. So this is a kind of middle grade clue book. So it's kind of a dark adventure where there's a lot of puzzles and clues to solve in it. Next is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is probably the last Neil Gaiman book that I have not yet read, although I have seen the movie and very much like the movie, so I'd love to read the book. Next is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. This is a book that actually I am 60% of the way through from a couple of years ago and I just haven't finished. It's a nonfiction about the kind of ways that our brain works to make fast decisions, which are sort of instinctual, and slow decisions, which are the ones that we actually logically think through. Next is Because Internet by Gretchen McCullough. This is a nonfiction about the ways that language has changed because of the internet, so the way that the internet has affected language change. Next is Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This is a nonfiction book about the history of the girls who worked in watchmaking factories that used radium to make glow-in-the-dark watch faces and kind of the very, very bad consequences of that. Next is The Healing of America by T.R. Reid, which is about the healthcare system. Next is Persepolis II by Marjane Satrapi. This is the sequel to Persepolis, and it is a memoir, a graphic memoir of this author who left Iran due to kind of the religious fundamentalism there, moved to Vienna, and then later moved back to Iran. I have read the first book, but I still need to read the second. Next is Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the sequel to Children of Time. I loved Children of Time and I really wanted to read this. I was actually supposed to read this together with Sush this year and I just did not get to it, but I very much want to. Now moving on to some books that Sush and I have picked up on various travels, beginning with Indian Legends of the Pacific Northwest by Ella E. Clark, illustrated by Bruce Inveriority. So this is a collection that actually we have started that is many different local indigenous groups in the Pacific Northwest, all of their different legends, so kind of creation stories and all of those sorts of things. Next is Hints on Household Taste by Charles L. Eastlake. This is a book that is from the 1880s, I believe, and I got this at a Victorian house museum because I'm just really interested in Victorian architecture and interior design, and this is all about that. Next is Blackfeet Indian Stories by George Bird Grinnell. This is a collection of various Blackfeet stories, and this is something that we picked up on a trip to Glacier National Park. Next is Weave a Circle Round by Kari Marin. This is a middle grade about some kids and some very strange next door neighbors and perhaps travel into thousands of years in the past. Not entirely sure, but we picked this up at an author reading. We loved hearing the author read the first chapter of this, so I'd love to get to it. Next is Blackfish City by Sam J. Miller. This is another book that we picked up at the same event where we heard this author speak as well. And this is, I think, a dystopian about ecological issues. And it sounds really interesting and has an orcamancer, or a girl who rides orcas. Next is Tillamook Rock Lighthouse by Brian D. Ratty, and this is just the story of this lighthouse called Tillamook Rock Lighthouse off the coast of Oregon, and it just sounds like it'd be an interesting, very kind of micro history to read about. Next is The Dark Fantastic by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas. This is a book that we picked up when we were on vacation, went to a small bookstore, and really wanted to read this because we'd heard great things. This is nonfiction about the way that Black girls are treated in fantasy, and it should be really good. Next is Fairy and Folk Tales of Ireland, edited by W.B. Yeats. This is a book that we picked up when we went to Worldcon in Dublin a couple of years ago, and I love fairy and folk tales, so this should be very good. And the last set of books that I have are 5 books that I bought for myself and just have not read yet, beginning with Down and Out by J. Andrew Briseno. Andy is actually a close family friend. I kind of grew up with him, and he became a professor of literature and wrote this book, and I really want to read it. So this is very high on my priority list. Next is Unladylike by Christian Conger and Caroline Irvin, illustrated by Tyler Federer. And this is basically a book all about feminism and destroying the patriarchy. It should be really good. It's illustrated. I just want to read this. Next is Women in Art by Rachel Ignatowski. I have loved her other books that are in the series, just kind of mini bios about women throughout history. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous, so I'm really looking forward to this. Next is Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is one of the few books that I have not yet read by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I am super excited. Looks like it takes place in the 1980s in Mexico City. It should be very good. And lastly, Philosophy for Beginners by Richard Osborne, illustrated by Ralph Edney. This is a graphic nonfiction about the history of philosophy. I picked this up at a library book sale many years ago, and I want to read it. I just haven't yet, but I think it would be good. Okay, so those are all of the books on my Physical TBR, minus the exclusions I mentioned at the beginning. Sorry about the lighting, by the way. The sun decided to come out in a strange way. If you guys have read any of these books, if you think there are any of them that I should prioritize, if you want to buddy read any of them, go ahead, leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you.